You were talking about a lot of things that make a good contractor a good contractor. Now, I believe that a lot of people are kind of like, they wouldn't know what to look for in a good contractor. Starting a project now.
Yeah.
I'm a smart person. I mean, I'm a successful businessman, executive, whatever it is. But I don't really know anything about construction. And I would like to get my job done as well as possible. I'd like to have what I want done. Possibly I want some guidance too. What would I be looking for in a good general contractor? What would make a general contractor good? What would be the things to look for?
It's a big question because there are lots of answers depending on, how big the project is, what you're planning on doing, where the project is. So to sort of take the basics. The first thing, from a client's perspective, is decide what you're actually looking for, because, like any business decision, understanding what the end goal is a really good place to start in the decision making process. And what I find is that people that run successful businesses somehow take their brain out. They take their business brain out when they start dealing with contractors, and they go into sort of defensive lockdown mode. They go into, right, we're going to, we take a defensive position and we become very aggressive. And it's like, treat this as a business transaction. What are you trying to achieve? And there's the old adage that you can have quality, time, or price. Pick two. I'm not sure that's actually true. I think it sounds funny and it's good to say. And there's definitely a kernel of truth in there. But I don't think that you have to sacrifice one of your primary goals. You can get a great product at a good price that's done on time. We do it all the time. We're not the cheapest contractor. There's always going to be someone, no matter what your business, that can do it for less than you do it. But I use the example of, if you were going to go and buy a BMW, and the BMW that you want to buy is $70,000. Well, if you go out and start looking, and there's one at 65, and there's one at 72, and there's one at 63, and there's one at 15. There's probably something about the one at 15 that he's not telling you. The fact that it's got a broken window and a screwdriver in the ignition is probably the first sign, right? And I've done this so many times. I'll give you an example. We did a job at 362 West Broadway. We'd built out an entire floor for a client. They were super happy. Project was about $750,000, so it was a big project. And the client, it was one apartment per floor. And the client, 2 floors above, they were friends, they spoke. There's only 5 or 6 apartments in the building. They spoke and they said, who should we use? They put our name forward. And we took the whole scope, we had plans, we had documentation, we had the whole thing, and we gave them a price of, I think, it's a while ago, so I think $450,000, $480,000. They took our bid. They got another bid which was about the same, just over 400, and they got another bid for 285. And I called my client and said, have a word with upstairs, and whether we get the job or not, there's something wrong with a bid that's just over half our price. Our material costs are coming in at about 285, plus labor, plus markup, plus profit, and the rest of it. I think she's going to come unstuck. And if she comes unstuck, it's going to be a real hassle for her. Didn't hear anything else. I get a call about 6 months later from the upstairs neighbor. I get a call 6 months later, can you come down and have a look at the project? It's not quite going to plan. So 6 months, she's given the guy $100,000. So far, the demolition is complete. And they're trying to reuse all the electrical cable that they've taken out of the walls, which is now spliced together. The plumbing is in the floor, so the rough plumbing's in the floor. The floors are all open. You can visibly see that the pipes are not pitched in the right direction. I'm like, what are you going to do? And she's like, I don't know. Will you take the job? I mean, I've paid $100,000 to all this already. Your price was $485 or whatever it was. Can we take $100,000 off that because I've already paid it, and you do it for $385?
I'm sorry, that person was probably in a lot of pain, but it's just
Really? But the fact is that it goes back to the BMW conversation. Someone came along with this thing that was so inexpensive as to be crazy, and you're making the comparison between a real company with real people that really understand what's going on, and two guys with a van who show up, and this is the biggest job they've ever done, and they're like all gung-ho about it. If you were going to a heart surgeon or a dentist or any other kind of business, you'd take one look at it and go, this is nuts. There's something that... But people go into construction and they have three prices and they choose the one that's way out in left field and try and convince themselves that they're actually buying the same product. So to answer your question, it's a big answer. To answer your question, go about choosing the contractor the same way as you would go about choosing any other business relationship. Research the actual company. It doesn't take long online to find out if someone has a bad reputation. Secondly, call the references. And when I say call the references, speak to 2 or 3 designers or architects that the guy's worked with in the last 12 months. Speak to 2 or 3 clients that the guy has worked with in the last 6 months. Because everyone's got that client that loves them from 2 years ago. Speak to someone recently and go to a current job. Go to a job, spend 4 or 5 hours doing some research on this guy, because you're going to be in a relationship with them for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. And once you've parted with that $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, you're kind of in it. And getting out of it is so much harder. So really think about what it is you're trying to achieve. Really get an idea from people what the cost for this should be. And once you've got that as a basis, interview people as if they were applying for a job, call their references, call architects and the designers they've worked with, and speak to their clients and give them a hard time. How do these guys do? Would you hire them again? Would you recommend them to your mother-in-law? Literally. Would you recommend them to your boss? And if the guy's like, well, there's always problems on a construction site. There's always something that comes up that you don't expect. How did they deal with it? Was it your problem all of a sudden? Or was it their problem that they were managing and these are the solutions that we're offering? Don't take your business brain out. And just because they're the cheapest doesn't make them the best or the worst. Just because they're cheap doesn't mean they're no good. When we first got into this business, we undercut everybody because our costs were so low. But we were committed to producing a great product. We were committed to being on time. And yeah, we were inexperienced, so we made mistakes. But the client was prepared to work with us with those mistakes because we were $50,000, $70,000, $80,000 less than a bigger company. And that's how we grew, and that's how we learned stuff. But we also kind of learned on their dime. We gave them a less expensive price with the kind of tacit understanding that we were the new kid on the block and we were going to work hard. And they could have paid twice as much and had it done perfectly. And we worked with them a little bit. So if you're prepared to do this kind of mental, gymnastics, if you like, that's fine. But understand what you're aiming for. Understand what the final goal is.
That's very, very powerful.